Years after the dust of World War II had settled,
Amerikanische Infanterie. Hoch sind die blutigen Verluste der Amerikaner.
the world was still uncovering the ripple effects of horrific Nazi crimes. During that time in a quiet American town, one man became fascinated, resurrecting Nazi nightmares on a secluded farm. This solitary man sat alone at his kitchen table and ate by candlelight every night. No one suspected that inside his home, police would discover lampshades made of human skin, chairs upholstered in flesh, and masks stitched from real faces, and so much more. These crimes blurred the line between reality and fiction. His twisted legacy became the blueprint for some of cinema's most iconic monsters: Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs, each one a distorted echo of the man from Wisconsin. This is the story of Ed Gein, the real psycho of Plainfield. Today we dive deep into one of America's most disturbing true crime cases, and we'll unravel the spine-chilling life of Ed Gein, a story so shocking it changed the horror genre forever. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in La Crosse County, Wisconsin. A quiet boy trapped in the grip of control and fear that later turned into a string of gruesome crimes. His father, George, was a violent alcoholic. His mother, Augusta, was fanatically religious and preached that all women, except herself, were sinful temptresses, doomed to drag men into hell. She whispered twisted religious themes of death and murder incessantly to her children, skewing Ed's view of the world. When Ed was still young, his father lost his business, and the family moved to an isolated 155-acre farm, cutting them off from the rest of the world. To Augusta, isolation was protection. To Ed and his older brother Henry, it was imprisonment. Ed's mother's teachings left a permanent scar. Neighbors knew him as a socially awkward boy who was deeply devoted to Augusta. Teachers regarded him as polite, good at reading, but strange. He rarely spoke, as if his mother's shadow followed him everywhere. Ed seldom left home, other than when he attended school, and later only to obtain necessities for the farm and family. In 1940, when Ed was 34 years old, his father died. This forced the brothers to take on extra odd jobs and demanded that Ed interact more with the outside world that he had such a difficult time connecting with, unlike Henry. 4 years later, in 1944, Henry began dating a divorced mother of two and planned to move in with her. In Augusta's eyes, no woman would ever be good enough for her boys. This idea infuriated her. Ed didn't like seeing his mother upset. He wanted to fix things. Soon after this, while a controlled fire had been burning near their farm, Henry went missing. During the search for him, his body was found, lying face down under suspicious circumstances. A local newspaper reported the incident, stating that Henry had died of a heart attack, but people whispered something else. The autopsy even noted bruises on Henry's head, though nothing further was investigated.
And Ed could not locate Henry, and he went and got help, but then after getting this help, he led the other people directly to where Henry's body lay, and there were some mysterious bruises on Henry's head.
After Henry's death, Augusta, who suffered a paralyzing stroke, became Ed's entire world. Completely alone, he devoted himself entirely to his mother, serving and obeying her. Her health continued to decline, and she died when Ed was 39 years old. Augusta's death shattered him. He had lost the person his entire world revolved around. That's when the real darkness began. After his mother's death, Gein sealed off most of the rooms in the farmhouse, leaving her bedroom untouched, like a shrine. He lived in squalor as the rest of the house continued to decay. Behind locked doors, his obsessions festered. Neighbors thought he was harmless, just lonely. No one saw the madness quietly brewing behind boarded windows. Years passed. Plainfield forgot about Ed Gein, the quiet, unassuming handyman who lived alone, but his interests were changing. He began devouring anatomy books and pulp magazines, immersing himself in stories about Nazis, cannibals, and headhunters. Ed was obsessed with a woman named Ilse Koch, known across history as the Witch of Buchenwald. She was infamous for her sadistic rituals during the Nazi regime, a woman who found pleasure in cruelty. Survivors said she would walk through the Buchenwald concentration camp, scanning the prisoners' skin for tattoos. Those she chose were killed. Their skin was used for lampshades, furniture, even framed displays on her walls. She was a monster. Her twisted fascination with human skin and death would plant a seed, one that grew into Ed's own nightmarish creations. He began his frightful obsession creeping among the graves, wandering through cemeteries, digging, collecting, experimenting. Gein exhumed freshly buried bodies, carrying parts back to his farmhouse. Gradually, the dead became silent witnesses in a secret world no one else had discovered. What was his twisted obsession? Recreating his dead mother by crafting a woman's suit from human skin, a morbid fascination with bringing his mother back to life. Soon, grave robbing wasn't enough for Ed. On November 16, 1957, the quiet town of Plainfield was rocked when Bernice Worden, a 58-year-old owner of the local hardware store, vanished. Her son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, stopped by the store where he found blood on the floor and his mother's truck missing. The cash register was open and a receipt for a gallon of antifreeze was left behind, a clue to how Ed preserved his delicate creations. That evening, Ed was seen driving Ms. Worden's truck. He was arrested at the local grocery store, acting as if nothing out of the ordinary had taken place. Later that night, the Waushara County Sheriff's Department arrived at Ed's farmhouse and made a discovery that was straight out of a horror movie. At first glance, there was total darkness and silence. Then, a smell that stopped them in their tracks. Unlike anything the investigators had ever seen. Inside the kitchen, on the stove, was a large pot. When investigators looked inside, they found a human heart, untouched. It was then they began to suspect cannibalism. In another room, stacked among dusty boxes, were human heads. Stolen remains of 14 bodies were found. More horrifying discoveries were human heads, wastebaskets, chairs, bowls, a corset, leggings, a belt, a lampshade, all made of human body parts and skin. 10 human heads, each one skinned and preserved for masks. Ed didn't just collect the dead, he wore them. When they moved on to search the property, they found a shed. Inside, hanging upside down like a deer, was the body of Bernice Worden, headless, gutted, and mutilated. She was shot by a .22 caliber rifle. When police questioned him, Ed Gein was calm, even polite. He spoke softly, as if describing chores on the farm. Under interrogation, Gein admitted to killing 2 women, Bernice Worden and a local tavern owner named Mary Hogan, who had vanished in 1954. Ed claimed he had heard his mother's voice, guiding him to dig up graves and exhume corpses just days after they had been buried. He searched for women who looked just like her, each body part a twisted piece of devotion. In his mind, he wasn't committing horrifying acts, he was making her proud. When psychiatrists examined Gein, they diagnosed him with schizophrenia and severe mental disorders. He was deemed legally insane, a man detached from reality, trapped inside the twisted world his mother had built for him. With everything that was discovered, authorities had suspicions that led them to revisit several missing persons cases that had haunted the region for years. On May 1st, 1947, 8-year-old Georgia Jean Weckler vanished near her home in Fort Atkinson. Witnesses reported seeing a dark-colored, possibly black, 1936 Ford sedan in the area that afternoon. The detail was unsettling because Ed Gein owned a black 1937 Ford, which was nearly identical in appearance. Then, on November 1st, 1952, 42-year-old Victor Harold Travis and his friend Raymond Burgess set out to hunt on land adjoining Gein's property. They were never seen again. In 1953, a 14-year-old girl named Evelyn Hartley vanished without a trace. Police quickly grew suspicious of Gein, though he denied any involvement and passed lie detector tests. But at the scene of her disappearance, they found a bloody blue denim jacket, eerily similar to the kind Ed always wore. Lastly, in June of 1954, James Walsh, one of Ed's neighbors, mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Each case left behind only questions, and the chilling possibility that Gein had killed more than he had admitted to. In 1958, the court declared him not guilty by reason of insanity. After the verdict, Ed Gein was committed to the Central State Hospital, where he would spend the rest of his life until his death in 1984. He spent his days in quiet confinement, a man whose madness had finally been caged, but whose story would haunt America for decades. When Ed Gein died, they buried him in the same Plainfield cemetery he once desecrated. Ed Gein wasn't a prolific killer. In fact, only 2 murders were ever confirmed, but the sheer grotesque nature of his crimes etched his name deep into the darkest corners of American folklore. He became the embodiment of the monster next door, and proof of the unspeakable evil that can grow in silence and isolation. Ed Gein reminds us, true horror doesn't always crawl out of the silver screen. Sometimes, it lives quietly, right next door. If you found this story intriguing, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more true crime cases where reality is far darker than fiction. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.